Well, a lot of Jets fans are focused on the defensive linemen we lost versus the defensive linemen we have. Let's take a look and see how they compare in week one. Well, all right, how you doing, everybody? This is GreenBean getting psyched up for the game against the Titans down there in Nashville. So many Jets fans are down there. I hope you guys are having an absolute blast, whether you're hanging out with Tailgate Joe or Gotham City Crew or just going rogue. I see all the videos. I see Fireman Ed getting Broadway all jetted up with the Jets chant. I'm telling you, I'm envious, but I'm happy that you guys are down there. Have a blast, be safe, and help the Jets get to a victory down there. Let's leave happy from Nashville. But guys, let's talk about one of the main issues right now, especially seeing how the Jets defensive line got pushed around in San Francisco. What's the first thing everybody's saying? I heard it at least 1,600,000 times. At least. Maybe a little bit more. Oh, JFM. If we had JFM. Oh, my God. Quinton Jefferson's better than Kinlaw. What about Al Woods? Al Woods, well, who's replacing Al Woods, right? Bryce Huff, McDonald sucks. That's what we're saying. So let's just take a look. We'll do this each week until it doesn't matter anymore. Hopefully it doesn't matter ever again. Our guys are just lighting it up. That's what I hope. But I'm interested in this, so I took a little look just to see how everybody's doing out there versus how we're doing in here, and just do an honest comparison. No bias. I am biased, but I won't be biased in this one. Let's just take an honest, objective look at these guys. Let's start with the big one. Everybody's talking about JFM. As you guys know, JFM had 50 pressures and 3.5 sacks last year. So it's going to be difficult to replicate that by a lot of people's estimations. I don't think it's going to be. I think as the season plays out, we'll get similar production from the guys that we have. But it's there, and it was impactful. So let's take a look. Week one, now he's in Denver, as you more than likely know. His PFF was 41.6 overall. Not very good. He played 34 snaps. Let me just do a disclaimer. I'm using PFF for the stats. I'm adding their grade just because it's there. But I want to see how many snaps, how many stops, how many hurries, pressures, all those kinds of things. A good site to get that information. So he's got a 41.6 PFF, 34 overall snaps, 17 runs, 17 pass, nice and even. He had 3 tackles, 2 of which were solo. 1 was an assist, 1 stop. Now, if you don't know what a stop is when the defensive lineman is responsible for the play being stopped but didn't make the tackle. So, for example, plug in the hole, a linebacker comes and makes the tackle. So for many years, the defensive lineman got no credit. Now PFF, one of the good things I like about PFF is they've added that. So he got a stop and 0 pressures. So 3 tackles total, 1 stop and 0 pressures, 41.6 overall grade on 34 snaps. Now, his direct comparison, replacement, if you will, is Michael Clemens. Now, Michael Clemens didn't have a great game. We know that. But he had his impact. So he had a 56.8 overall grade. So about, 15.2 points higher via PFF. 31 snaps overall, 18 run, 13 pass, 1 assist tackle, and 1 sack. He also had 2 pressures and 1 stop. So JFM had 2 more tackles. Clemens had that sack. He also had 1 or 2 pressures where JFM, a lot of initials, man. JFM had 0 pressures. So again, but he's not saying he had a great game, but just head to head, as far as statistically speaking, an impact on the game for their teams. Week 1, JFM was outplayed by Michael Clemens. And the truth is Clemens could have been credited with 2 sacks. The one that's credited to Tony Adams, that was all Michael Clemens. Tony Adams flew up and made the tackle when Clemens was, provided the pressure and chased him to the sideline, and Tony Adams came in and cleaned it up. So it could have been 2 sacks, gets credited for 1. So a little bit better than JFM week 1. Quinton Jefferson versus Javon Kinlaw, because that's really the replacement. Al Woods was replaced by Fotu, who we won't see until week 5 in England, in London, as the potential first game we'll see Fotu. So right now we got Quinton Jefferson versus Kinlaw. Quinton Jefferson, playing now for the Cleveland Browns, had a 51.9 overall PFF, 36 snaps played, 13 run, 23 pass rushing snaps. He had 3 tackles, 1 solo, 2 assists, no pressures, hurries, anything like that. So not terrible, not good by any measure. But Javon Kinlaw, his direct replacement, had a 64.3 PFF, the highest so far on our list. He had 70. Well, how many snaps? He had 41 total snaps. So he played a little bit more. He had 5 more snaps than Jefferson. 19 of those were run. 22 were pass rushing snaps. 4 solo tackles, 4 stops, and 2 pressures. Not a bad game, even though there were other plays where he got pushed right out of the field to play, really, and they ran right through his hole. So it's directly, in contrast to some other plays that were, really he should have been in position to make the play. But he had 4 solo tackles, 4 stops where he was responsible for, blowing up the play and the tackle was made, and 2 pressures on the quarterback. Now let's look to, so a little bit better than Quinton Jefferson, quite frankly. Jefferson, 3 tackles, Kinlaw with 4. He had 4 stops. Quinton Jefferson had 0. And he had 2 pressures. Quinton Jefferson had 0. So he flat out outplayed Quinton Jefferson. Even though it didn't feel that way to us, he did. Bryce Huff versus Will McDonald. This is where 2 guys that I think both teams had high expectations for really didn't do so well. So Bryce Huff down there in Philly, he played 28 snaps. Interestingly enough, he had a higher grade as a run defender, 52.1 versus 48.8 pass. It's weird, right? You wouldn't think his total impact on the game was 1 solo tackle, no pressures, no stops, anything like that. So 48.8 overall grade by PFF. Will McDonald comes in with a lower grade, 30.3. Not good at all. 33 total snaps. Interestingly enough, he had a 26.9 run grade, but passing snaps, he had a 62.6. So he played much better in the passing game, but he was so paltry in the run game that it brought his grade down to a 30. He had 1 solo tackle, so there matches Huff, and he also had 2 pressures. So interesting. He played, 5 more snaps than Bryce Huff and had really 2 pressures to show for it. So I gotta say, honestly, so far, even though it's not great, the Jets' replacements are doing better than their former players, the former incumbents in their new positions on new teams. Now, that's not to say if those players weren't on this team, they wouldn't do better, because we know how they are here. Bryce Huff in a Jets uniform, we know what that is. JFM in a Jets uniform, we know what that is. So it's a different story. It's not direct correlation, right? What would they do for us? But when you think about how important it is, when somebody loses a player and they go, oh my God, he's going to be so great elsewhere. So far, not the case. Our replacements are actually outplaying slightly the players that have gone on to other teams. The Broncos, the Browns, and the Eagles for our former players. We'll keep an eye on this throughout the season. Again, until it doesn't matter anymore. If Kinlaw and Clemens and McDonald are getting sacks and tackles all over, then we don't need to talk about it anymore. We'll maybe check in on it, but it's an interesting thing, at least from my vantage point. I'm interested in it. I'm curious. I look at such things because, I root with hatred. As soon as they leave the Jets, I'm like, I want them to fucking fail. That's how I roll. So let me know what you think. Are you still hopeful for the guys that we have? Are you out? Are you already writing them off? Let me know in the comments. We're going to have a good, fun day today. Don't forget to hang out with us in the Talkin' Jets live stream right here on GreenBean Jets Fans Network here. We're going to have a great time. Jets Chaos, Jeremy, and Frankie from Flatbush will join me for the live reaction and watch party for the game, 1 p.m. We'll actually be starting at 12:30. I hope you will join us. With that all said, enjoy the rest of your morning. I'll see you later, and go Jets.